Well, hello. It's my privilege to introduce you to three of our CCF Climate Heroes. Everyone who is nominated as a hero will shortly be receiving their certificate from KSB, and if we had time, we'd love to have them all here because each one of them has an amazing story to tell. But we are very grateful to have three heroes here today who represent something of the breadth of volunteering that goes on across the CCF community. So I'd like to introduce you to Maureen McLaughlin from Cambuslang, Chris McCann from Greenock, and Sarah Wasu from Clydebank. Welcome to each of you, and thank you so much for being willing to join us today to tell us a bit about your story. So I'm going to turn firstly to Maureen, and thank you, Maureen, for joining us. I just loved reading all about the work that you do to fix things and teach others to fix things. Clothing in particular seems to be a big area of interest and skill for you, but I've been reading that you can turn your hand to fixing lots of different things. Maureen, tell us how you picked up all these skills and how you learned to be so adept at fixing and mending things.
I think as a child, I learned from my parents, my siblings, and at school. I was brought up, I went to school in the 50s and 60s, so at school we got home economics, or we taught to sew, knit, and just, I think my parents, my older siblings were brought up during the war. My father was away at the war for 6 years. My mother was essentially a single parent and was on a budget. So it just became a way of life that we never wasted anything. My mother would knit jumpers and then she would rip them out and knit them again in a bigger, smaller size for whoever was coming next. And it's just been passed on, and I've passed it on to my own children. As I say, it's just a way of life. You just don't want to waste things. So everything gets passed on through the family, whether it's furniture or clothes or baby, toys, anything. We very seldom throw anything away. And if something can be upcycled, it's broken, then we'll upcycle it into something else or we'll fix it. And just over the years, recently with technology, with YouTube, I just go into that and I'm able to fix things. Central heat in my washing machine, my dishwasher, whatever. If I can do it, I'll fix it. The only thing I don't tackle is electricity and plumbing. But anything that if I can't do it, then I'll get someone in, obviously professional. But I'm willing to tackle anything. And so far I've been pretty successful. So quite
That's
happy.
amazing, Maureen. I think we might be sharing your phone number after this for anyone who needs a helping hand. That culture you described when you grew up in is a very different culture from the culture that young people are growing up in now, where there's a kind of anything's just a click away, use it, discard it, get a new one. Why should we still be encouraging people to fix stuff, repair stuff, and reuse stuff in this day and age?
I think we should, because, well, unfortunately what's happened is skills aren't passed on. So with the volunteering that I do, you're starting it up again. You're getting people, the amount of satisfaction you get out of fixing something. And a lot of people think they can't do it. They don't have the confidence, so they just throw it away. If you can show somebody how to sew on a button, how to take up a sleeve, how to take something in, or how to re-style something, make a dress into a top or whatever, the satisfaction that they get out of it is just amazing. And also it builds their confidence and their self-esteem. And then there's also the social interaction that you have. There's just so many pluses. It's not just as I say, sewing on the button or fixing a dress or whatever. That person would have flung that away because they don't know how to fix it. And that goes for anything, whether it's taking up curtains or fixing whatever, especially if you've got a favourite item and you just don't want to throw it out, but you can't wear it for whatever reason, it needs repaired. And sitting somebody down at a sewing machine that they've never done, they're absolutely terrified. But I always say it's like driving a car. Just squeeze the pedal the way you would with accelerator. If you can drive a car, you can work a sewing machine. You can sew in a straight line, and that's all you need to do to fix the seam. And then your favourite garment, you can wear again. So that's just the way it works. And any skill that you've got, if we pass them on, then the skills aren't lost. Unfortunately, schools aren't teaching these anymore parents aren't passing them on to their children because the parents haven't got the skills because they haven't learned them from their parents. You know, so that's the way I look at it, and that's why I volunteer, because I want to pass on those skills before they're lost.
Amazing. And I picked up when I read a bit about what you do, that sense of positive self-esteem that grows when people learn that they can fix stuff. And also, I looked from some of the photos I saw that there was quite a lot of fun and laughter along the way, and a lot of nice community building. Maureen, when COVID came along and PPE was in short supply, you kind of sprang into action. Tell us a bit about what you did.
Well, I started making masks just for myself and family because I just felt it was important that we didn't pass on, you know, the infection. At the time, they were saying masks weren't important, but I just felt that, well, we need to try and stop this, you know, spreading on. And then they had the For the Love of Scrubs that came up. So I started making scrub bags and scrubs of it again to stop infection spreading. The nurses were able to put their scrubs into a bag, take it home straight into the washing machine, and again stop the spread of infection. And then I started doing making like small hearts in pairs. And what happened then was, obviously, patients who were in hospital with COVID, the family couldn't see them, and some of them unfortunately didn't survive. So what they did with the pairs of hearts was one heart stayed with the person who had COVID, and the other went to the family. And it was a connection they couldn't have by visiting. They couldn't speak to them. And if they were unconscious near the end of their life, there was no communication at all. So the hearts were a way of connecting, you know, between the person and their family. It was just a simple thing, but the feedback from the families was, you know, that they felt that connection was there, you know. So, and they still do that now. They're doing it just with people who are sick in hospital. They're doing it with children that are in hospital, you know. So the heart campaign, I think, is still going on because it went further than COVID.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Inspiring, Maureen. And last question, really, for you. You know, this clearly takes up a lot of your time. It's a big part of your life. What motivates you to spend so much of your time and energy volunteering to help others in this way?
It's like I said before, it's just passing on the skills. I feel time is running out to encourage people to recycle, to learn to do for themselves. But then it means they can pass it on again, or pass on through the generations. If you stop sharing now, then it's going to die. All these skills will die. And the planned obsolescence that, you know, that's in place just now, like, well, I can just go and buy another one, so I'll just throw it in the bin. You know, you have to stop that if you can, you know. So that's why I volunteer. I volunteer at Repair Cafe, I volunteer at Revolve. You know, I'm a handy person. I volunteer as much as I can because I think it's important that we can share it. And the satisfaction you get when you fix something for someone or show someone how to fix something, you know, they're just so grateful. So the satisfaction I get from that is really what makes me keep volunteering, you know, and I'm quite happy to do it. And I'll do it as long as I can.
Amazing. So, thank you, Maureen. You're an inspiration, and it's great to hear no danger of those skills dying out around where you are. So thank you for being a key part in the link in that chain. Thank you, Maureen. So we're going to turn to our next hero now, and welcome to Chris. Chris, thanks for joining us all the way from Greenock. Chris, you've been doing something quite different to Maureen. I loved reading about your work helping people get onto their bikes, and particularly folks who've struggled maybe because they've not had the money for a bike or they've not had the confidence to get onto a bike. Tell us how you got into doing this in the first place.
I had been volunteering up at Belleville Community Gardens Trust for quite some time, and last year they had some funding and an opportunity to put me through a full 2-day Velotech bicycle maintenance course. So after learning those skills, I then done some free bike maintenance sessions when they used to do their soup and a blether on a Friday at lunchtime. People could bring their bikes along and I would give it a maintenance check and fix minor repairs on it if I could, and it was all free. So that's how I first got into it, yeah.
And it sounds like you also had quite an impact at COVID time. You used those skills that you had to help frontline workers. Tell us a bit more about that and what you were doing.
Well, when lockdown first hit, Belleville Community Gardens had got some funding from Cycling UK, which allowed us to get in some basic materials such as gear and brake cables and cable housings, inner tubes and gear chains and things like that. We'd managed to be donated an awful lot of bikes that were older or not being used or in not good condition, and done what I could and fixed them up and passed them on to frontline workers and key workers in the local area who didn't have one or who were looking for one. So that gave people the opportunity then to use it to get to work if they didn't have other transport, and it also gave them a chance to maybe get out more and get a bit of exercise during lockdown because they could go out cycling. So
Yeah, amazing. And I think most of us noticed that over lockdown there were a lot more people out on the bikes, and partly because the roads were quieter, but also because they had that sense of freedom, not being cooped up in their house, but being able to get out. Chris, we need to get more people in Scotland riding their bikes every day, riding their bikes for everyday journeys. What do you do to help people who are maybe nervous or unsure about riding? How do you help them make that change to become more confident and more regular cyclists?
Things that I've done personally to help, I've done a few Facebook Live sessions with the Belleville Community Gardens, showing people some basic cycle maintenance, how to keep their bike well checked over and make sure everything, and how to fix minor things like readjusting your derailleurs and stuff if your gears aren't working properly and things like that. So that again's passed on skills and helping that people can sort of maintain their bike and get using it more often. When people have came to collect their bikes once they're repaired from us and stuff, I do give them tips how to look after it and wee things to keep things checked up and stuff. And if anyone needs a bit of help or encouragement in trying to get back confidence getting back on a bike or get a bit of road safety sort of knowledge, I usually sort of point them in the direction of the Inverclyde Bothy. They helped me in the same sort of way and got me used to getting out on the roads on the bike a lot more confident than I used to be. Not scared of traffic lights or junctions or anything anymore. So
Great. And I'm sure because you've been on that journey yourself, from someone who wasn't very confident to someone who's now become confident, you can kind of appreciate how folk feel when they're maybe a bit nervous about getting out into the traffic for the first time. Chris, like Maureen, this is obviously a big thing for you. You spend a lot of your time doing this. What's your motivation to spend so much of your time volunteering and helping others like this?
it was a couple of years ago now, I actually got involved volunteering with Belleville Community Gardens Trust. I also got involved in volunteering with Inverclyde Recovery Cafe. Both have helped me very much regarding going through mental health issues and building my self-confidence again to feel part of the local community again. If it wasn't for these local charities and organisations, I probably wouldn't be where I am now, and I've learned these skills and be able to do what I'm doing. And I find that it makes you feel great to be able to help other people within the community and obviously, I got help from the local community and it feels good to give back and just makes everything better, I think.
Chris, that's an amazing story. You, like the rest, are a real inspiration. Thank you for all that you do, and thanks for sharing a wee bit of your story with us today. So I'm going to turn finally to the last hero that we have with us today, and that's Sarah. Sarah, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Sarah, you're a green champion with the community initiative Isaro in Clydebank. Tell us how you got involved in this project in the first place.
Yeah, so it's a really long story. It started off, I believe in 2006, I was the youngest volunteer. And obviously I owe it to my mum because she was always in the volunteering sector. And she was just very heavily involved with communicating with others and just, making friends. And I believe like volunteering is just such a good, it's not even a field, but it's just such a good, you can call it a hobby or even a career to have because it connects everyone together. So my mum, first of all, I think she first heard about Isaro because in Clydebank there were many newer refugees coming through, and obviously with the language barrier, that's like a huge thing to overcome. So my mum, she speaks Arabic. I'm also multilingual, and they wanted someone, who is with the kids, like just down and like who's actually younger, because um, I think from a perspective of someone who's just come to a new country, making friends and talking to adults, it's probably quite scary. So I think they just wanted someone who is able to just talk to them and just give them a bit of an insight as to what life is. So from that aspect, I was able to like translate for them and stuff like that. And then as I spent more time with Isero, they started to realize, wait, you do this, you do that. So I was like, yeah, like I've worked with the Scottish Forestry, and I was a volunteer community champion with them, and just all of these like small things that I guess they started to like link together, and they were like, okay, well, we want you to do this for us, we want you to do that. And I just love doing it. I've done it for ages as well, so it was no problem for me. So yeah, like that's how I got into Isero. I think it was a mix of both, my multilingual talents and my volunteering, but mostly my volunteering because I just thought it was, just an everyday thing. So yeah.
Great, amazing. And one of the things I loved reading about you was the fact that your infectious enthusiasm for volunteering has rubbed off. You've recruited other young people to join you as Green Champions. So tell us how you persuaded others to join you, and maybe say a little bit about some of the things you've been doing together as Green Champions.
So I think it's mostly what I say about what I do. I don't think that made lots of sense, but I'm going to elaborate. So I think I speak quite a lot about the stuff that I do, the stuff that I achieve, what I gain from it, and people slowly start to get really interested with the stuff that I gain. Because when people think volunteering, oh, you're probably just doing this, doing that, not something big, but it does like get, you're doing some things on like a huge level. So for getting people connected and like getting people into volunteering and into the green climate change sector type of thing, I do quite a lot of just talks with people, like even in school, like I'll be up in the library and I'll be just talking about one of the sessions I had over the weekend, and then someone will come up to me and they just want to get involved. So I'll obviously let them know and I'll give them a bit more of information. But over lockdown, I believe I was doing some sessions as well. So I hold these sessions just to give people an insight into what's happening around the world, and mostly focused on climate change and global warming. So obviously I'm dealing with different ages and everyone's like from different backgrounds. So if I'll kind of alter what I'm telling them to the age group. So when it's with the younger ones, like I'll talk about the life of a plastic particle or something like that, just to like make them understand. Because when, I don't know about any views, but when climate change was like it was highlighted as a huge issue, people weren't really talking about it in terms of um, it's our everyday type of things that contribute to it. It was more like, oh, it was factories and it was the fuel that is used by airplanes. So we never really thought about, oh, like driving our car every day, that's going to add up to carbon emissions and stuff like that. So I think it's quite easy to just not take the blame for something that we all do. So that's why it's important, and that's why I do these little sessions with the younger kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of COVID, Sarah, I mean, you that didn't stop you either. You found a way to keep doing what you were doing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that worked out?
So I started off with food packages. So with Isero, and I live like in Glasgow on the south side. So it was easier for me to stay in that area, obviously because of COVID like restrictions. I wasn't able to go into Clydebank that often, but I was able to do my job from home and like in and out, because you're allowed to keep a distance basically. You're allowed to go to people's houses, but obviously not into their houses, just from outside. So I was able to deliver food packages. So I was making those up, just contacting people and finding out what they needed and what anything they wanted, even like small treats. So the first thing I done was food packages, and I was able to get them to people's houses, have a little chat, and then over the fence. It was quite sad, but we hadn't seen each other for like people that I had worked with for ages. So I hadn't seen them for around, I think it was a month before we had gotten all the plans together. So yeah, I started off with the food parcels, and then slowly I started to make little pamper packages for especially the people who are in school and they're stressing over grades and estimates and whatnot. So just stuff like that. I was able to make little pamper packages and like bath bombs and stuff for them, just so they can, you know, relax a bit. Yeah, so that was another thing we done. And then one of the other things that like I'm really passionate about is growing. So I've grown like so many different plants. So I have mangoes, avocados, and passion fruit as well as lychees. So I'm growing all those from seeds. So I just thought with Isero's help, maybe I can have like a little you know, something to make them occupied, especially the younger kids over lockdown. So we had like these little packages and they were just plant pots. You had a couple of seeds for tomatoes and cucumbers, and we had the just like instructions just in case they never knew. And then if they needed any help, I was able to, you know, call them up and just give them step by step.
Sarah, I'm exhausted listening to you. What an amazing list, and what a fantastic story to tell. I wish we had another hour to talk to you and to the rest of our heroes, but sadly our time is up. So I just want to conclude this session with saying a massive thank you to you all. It's quite something to come on in front of a big audience, even though we're virtual here, and share your story. So thank you to all of you for all that you do in our CCF community, helping us to move towards a greener future, but also, as you've all shared, I think just helping us to move towards a kind of stronger sense of community and a more caring culture. And I just want to pick up on something that I think if you mentioned. We often hear people talk about the importance of strong leadership from governments and from businesses. And I think we all know that's really, really important. But if there was ever any doubt that individuals actually can make a difference, then I think each of you, your stories have shown us just clearly how important that is. And I know I speak for everyone at KSB when I say that reading your stories, hearing about what you do is one of the most exciting and inspiring aspects of our job. And I know that the people who've been listening to this session today will have been inspired by hearing your stories too. So thank you again to Maureen, to Chris and to Sarah.